Abraham sees three men, and Abraham approaches them and he bows down to one of them, and he refers to one of them as God, and one of the men is described as God. And this man who is described as God tells Abraham that he's going to go destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And then you read later on in the book of Genesis where it says, and the Lord, when God is destroying Sodom and Gomorrah, it says, and the Lord rained down fire from the Lord. How does God rain down fire from God? Because that's the Son of God raining down the fury of his Father against Sodom. So Christ destroys Sodom and Gomorrah, and God the Father destroys Sodom and Gomorrah through his Son. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff. And if you are a guy who is fighting against Sodom, there is no story in the Bible that is more inspirational for that war against Sodom than that. That right there, the whole fight against Sodom and Gomorrah, that is the microcosm, that is the epitome, that is the image of the war, of the entire war against Sodom. Is right there in that story. And what do you see at the center of that story? At the center of the story against Sodom and Gomorrah, what do you see at the center? You see the image of the Father. How does St. Paul describe God the Son? He calls Christ the image of the Father. That's so fascinating. Christ is the image of the Father. And the image of the Father is raining down the fury of the Father onto Sodom. So when people say, oh, Christ never mentioned Sodom and Gomorrah, he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. And what did Christ say in the New Testament? He said, remember Lot's wife. Remember Lot's wife. Well, what's there to remember about Lot's wife? Other than she sympathized with Sodom as it was being destroyed, and she heard the cries of the Sodomites, and she turned around and she was turned into a pillar of salt. So Christ is saying, don't mimic Lot's wife. Don't sympathize with Sodom. I destroyed Sodom. Do not sympathize with it. It's right there in all of its glory. And people will say, well, how come Christ doesn't just say that he's against Sodom? Because he doesn't want the damned to get it. Why does Christ use allegories, and why does Christ use why does he use figurative language as opposed to just explicitly making declarations? And Christ was asked this question. So they asked Christ, Lord, why do you speak in parables? You know what Christ said? Because I don't want the damned to understand. In other words, I don't want the assholes who come out and say, well, why don't you just say it, to understand what I'm saying? Because they're assholes. The assholes are going to say, well, we support Sodom because Christ never explicitly made a declaration against Sodom. And God said, go live in your evil. You want to drink your evil? Drink of it. Here, take your cup and drink of it. And there's that verse in the book of Revelation where Christ says, let those who are evil do evil. Christ says this, let those who are evil do evil. They're evil. They have made up their minds for evil. And so even if I said an explicit declaration against Sodom, they would still reject it. That's why Christ doesn't waste his time with explicit declarations in regards to that issue. He wants the people who actually want to connect with God, who actually want to know God, to think about what Christ is saying. Because the wicked don't want to think. The wicked just want an argument so they can corner you. But the people who actually want to understand what Christ is saying, they're going to say, wait a second, what's that parable mean? What does that parable mean? What does it mean to remember Lot's wife? Well, who was Lot's wife? What happened to her? She was turned into a pillar of salt. Where is that described? Oh, it's in the book of Genesis. You go to Genesis chapter 19. What do you read? The Lord is raining down fire from the Lord. How can God rain down fire from God? Then you go to the chapter before that, and you see Abraham seeing three men, and Abraham bows down to one of them because one of them was God. And that man told Abraham, I'm going to go destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. That man was God. That's the theophany. That's one of the theophanies. And it makes you wonder, that verse in the book of Revelation, let those who are evil do evil, do not waste your time with them. There's that verse in the book of Revelation. Let those who are evil do evil. Do not waste your time with evil people. It's the truth. Don't waste your time with them. If someone comes to you and says that they love Sodom, you tell them to go continue on. Go Don't waste your time trying to convince them otherwise. I'm not saying to encourage them, obviously not. But if someone comes to you and says that they love Sodom, and they start arguing with you, and they start saying, well, where does Christ explicitly make a declaration against Sodom? Where does he explicitly make a declaration against the LGBT? Well, you'll give him the verse, remember Lot's wife. And they'll say, well, that's not an explicit declaration. That could mean many things. Oh, so you don't want to understand. I see. So you don't actually want to delve into the different layers of meaning in the verses in the New Testament in light of what it says in the Old Testament. You don't want to get deep like that. You don't want to get in depth in what Christianity is. I see. So you just want to make an argument. You just want to try to corner people. That's all you want to do. I see. I see what you're about. So that's why when they asked Christ, Lord, why do you speak in parables? Christ says, because I don't want assholes to understand. I don't want assholes to get it. Because he knew that by making explicit declarations, he's going to be appealing to who? The assholes. Because the assholes want everything to be said explicitly if it's to their advantage. And because they're assholes, even if he made explicit language, they still wouldn't follow him. So Christ wants to speak in parables. Why? Because he wants people to think. The assholes aren't going to think. Are not going to think even if you give them explicit declarations. They're still not going to think. So why give them, why make explicit declarations? Christ wants us to think. God wants us to think about what he says. He wants us to look at the New Testament in light of the Old. He wants us to look at the Old Testament in light of the New. God wants a people who think, not a people who just say, oh, spoon feed me everything. If you want something spoon fed to you, you weren't going to accept it even if it were spoon fed to you. And that's the God-honest truth. It's a waste of time. I remember when I was in, let me know if the music is too loud, guys. I remember I was in North Carolina. And I remember there was this pastor that was there, and he said, Theodore, I'm going to allow you to speak. It's Saturday evening. Okay, I'm going to give you your time to talk. You're going to get 20 minutes. That's enough. Okay, fine. You know, I do 20-minute videos all the time, so no big deal. And I gave my 20-minute talk. And this was back in 2014. This was back in 2014, guy. Old school. This is over 10 years ago. This is over 10 years ago. This is before going against Sodom was cool. This was back in the day when people were loving the what did they call them? Log cabin Republicans and all that crap. This was in the age of Steve Crowder loving Sodom, and people thought it was great because, you know, we got to use the Sodomites against the left. We got to use Sodom against the left. That was the consensus. It was like the CIA saying we got to arm the Mujahideen to fight the Soviets. That type of crazy shit. So here I was, and I wasn't in an echo chamber. A lot of people disagreed with me. Christians, so-called Christians disagreed with me. So-called conservatives disagreed with me. They were calling me a Jacobin. They were saying I was a whack job. So it was 2014. I was in monk mode in 2014. Seriously, I was in monk mode. I was getting into Catholicism. I was going to mass. I was like the whole thing. I was into the Gregorian chant every day, all day, every day. Ambrosian chant, Gregorian chant. So I was there to speak. I was like, I'm going to tell these people about Sodom. So I got up and I spoke. And I spoke about Sodom. And I brought up the New Testament. And I brought up Romans chapter 1. And I brought up all these verses. People were getting up and leaving. Oh yeah, this was in North Carolina. Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a big university town. You want to see some of the most beautiful women in America? Go to Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm dead serious too. I'm dead serious. Raleigh, North Carolina. They should have. They should go there to recruit beauty pageants. They should go to North Carolina to go recruit for beauty pageants. I'm not exaggerating, but anyway, that's beside the point. So I preached. I went up there and I spoke. People were getting up and leaving. They were getting up and, not everybody, but there were some people that got up and left. There were like maybe 3 or 4 people that got up and left. And after the sermon, I went back to the audience, and then after the service was over, after the whole event was over, these 2 women came up to me, and they weren't the pretty ones. This was not they were the ugliest women in North Carolina. They were hideous. All right. And of course they were pro Sodom. Of course. The gorgeous North Carolina women are not going to be pro Sodom. Those are the types that put on the MAGA bikinis. Okay. So they came up to me, and one of them says, "God is love. He's love. How could you say the things you said?" And she's crying. I mean, tears running down her eyes, the whole thing. It was crazy. So I knew I was like, I got this. I know how to handle this situation. Here we go. We're going to do this. So I said, okay. I pulled out the Bible. And I showed the verse. It says, okay, God, I said, okay, you said God is love. Okay, fine, agreed. God is love. I said, let's go to, I think it was in Romans, where Paul says, all law can be summed up as love. All the law can be summed up as the law of love. And I said, every single law, Paul said, every single law can be summed up as the law of love. I said, so the law against Sodom is the law of love. So you're right that God is love, but what does that entail? And Paul tells us that all of the law of God is the law of love. So the law against Sodom is the law of love. So your interpretation is just wrong. And guess what she did? She started crying harder. Guys, there are people who tell me that I'm a liberal because I'm against the far-right Nazi eugenist lunatics and that I'm against Elon Musk and all that Silicon Valley bullshit. No, you guys are the liberals. That's what you guys don't understand. I was drinking liberal tears when you guys were in middle school. I'm old school like that. I go back. I go way back, guys. I'm not exaggerating. I go way back. I didn't just start YouTubing recently. I started YouTubing when I was in high school. I would already be having a large number of subscribers already if YouTube hadn't freaking canceled me 4 times. But here I am doing the same thing. I was drinking liberal tears before that term even existed. She was crying. She started crying harder. And I looked at her and I said, you can't go against what God says. I'm sorry. Well, I wasn't sorry. So guess who was around me when the woman was crying? Brothers. Yep. Black folks. Black folks. And the black folks had my back. And they said, man, I really like what you had to say. I said, I appreciate that. And this one brother came up to me and he said, why that woman crying? I said, I don't know. He goes, I don't know either. I said, well, she has a problem with what I'm saying. He goes, that beats the hell out of me. I don't know why anybody would have a problem with what you're saying. That's crazy. I said, I know. I agree, man. I agree. So the next day, so that night, pastor says to me, the pastor invites me for dinner. So we're in this restaurant. This pastor is shoving his face with egg rolls, sriracha ranch sauce egg rolls. Yeah, I know, right? It's we're in real America here, guys. This is real American territory. We're not at your babushka's house. This is real America. And he's shoving his face with these egg rolls. And he tells me, he says, Theodore, you will not be speaking tomorrow. You will not be speaking Sunday morning. I will allow you to speak in the evening, but you will not be speaking Sunday morning. I said, why is that? He said, did you notice, Theodore? Theodore, did you notice that people were walking out during your sermon? Did you notice that? I said, yeah, I did. But I was speaking the truth. I was speaking the truth. He goes, Theodore, do you know where you are? That's what he tells me. Do you know where you are? You're in North Carolina. We have Southern politeness here, and we don't talk the way that you talk. We don't talk that way. I said, homie, what fucking country bumpkin house have you been residing in? This is 2014. All right, we got mumble rap. We got people out here saying horrendous things, and North Carolina ain't exempt, my friend. All right, I don't know if you're living in that movie, that M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Village, but it seems like you're quite out of touch, I must say, sir. So I told them, I said, I forgot what I told them, actually. But anyway, I told him something. So the next day, Sunday morning, I did not speak. I spoke that evening. Oh man. And you could say, well, Ted, why did you decide to speak that evening when the guy clearly pushed you out? I mean, the guy wasn't really respecting you. And I'll answer that question if you're wondering that, because I wanted to. I said, listen, if I'm gonna leave here, I'm gonna leave with a bang, and I'm gonna make that evening sermon, and I'm gonna make it nasty. I'm gonna go hard. I'm not gonna be nice. So that morning, this black dude comes up to me, and he said, "Man, why aren't you speaking?" I said, "Talk to your pastor. He doesn't want me to speak." He goes, "Well, why the hell not?" So I said, because he don't like what I have to say about the rainbow people. He said, "Man, that's ridiculous." I said, "I know, brother, I know." So then this white guy comes up to me, and he said, "Why aren't you speaking?" And I said, this guy looked like Boomhauer. And I said, "Talk to your pastor. He don't want me to speak." He said, "Why not?" I said, because he didn't like what I had to say about the Rainbow Mafia. He said, "Man, he really bitched you, didn't he?" Yeah, that's the word he used, bitched. You got bitched. And bless the pastor's heart. That's right. So that night I went hard on the Sodomites. Oh yeah, I went harder than the night before. I didn't care. And I called them Sodomites. I went up there and I called them Sodomites. And I went to the pastor's office. I want to say it was right before the sermon, and I was talking to this African American gentleman, and I said, and the pastor was there, and I knew he was there, and I wanted him to hear me. I said, if I'm going to leave this place, I'm going to make sure that you hate my guts, and I'll make sure you never invite me again. I don't give a damn. It was crazy. Some crazy ass times, let me tell you. I was crazy. So I'm talking to this African American gentleman, and I said, the Bible calls them Sodomites, I call them Sodomites. And the black guy looks at me, African American gentleman looks at me, and he says, that's right. That's right. That's what I call them. That's what I call them. He says, Big T. That's what he called me, Big T. And this guy was a fan of my YouTube channel. This African American dude, he was a great guy. He was a 15-year veteran in the Marine Corps. And he left the Marine Corps. He was telling me about how he left the Marine Corps after 15 years. He said, because the Pentagon started pushing Sodom on us. And I said, hell no. I ain't gonna stand for that bullshit. He said, I had this 5'4" pimple-faced white boy walking up to me from the Pentagon telling me what I can and cannot say. And I said, to hell with you. You don't have the dignity for the American uniform. You ain't never seen combat, boy. I seen combat. You never seen combat a day in your damn life. You here to tell me what I can and can't say. You straight out of college, boy. 15 years in the Marine Corps. You want to tell me what I can and cannot say. The only gun you fired is in training. Basic training. Now you telling me what to do. You ain't seen a day of combat in your whole life. Now you want to tell me to respect two men fudging each other. Ain't gonna happen, boy. Ain't gonna happen. This guy was intense. He was telling me the story. He was an intense guy. He called me Big T, and he knew who I was when I first arrived. The day before I spoke, he came up to me. He said, Big T, I watch your YouTube videos every day. I said, damn, dude. Damn, dude, this is fucking great. And then woke ass pastor, and this was before the word woke even existed. Woke ass pastor is telling me what to do. And so me and this African American gentleman were speaking in this manner, and I was loud. I said, I'm gonna make sure this guy never invite me again. I never want to come here again. Now I'll come for the people who like me, who admire my work, but I won't come. I will not appeal nor appease. I will not appeal to nor appease this enabler of the Antichrist. So pastor walks up and he hears me and this guy talking, and he said, I don't like that language. And I looked at him and I said, the Bible calls them sodomites. What's your problem with the Bible? And the African-American 15-year veteran said, that's right. That's right. So my point is, people who have unreasonable positions, or people who hold positions that are explicitly the opposite of Christianity, are not worthy of being reasoned with. They're not worth the time. They really aren't. Unless you want to piss them off and have some fun with that and get them all flustered, and that's fine. But it's really a waste of time. And Jesus said, let those who are evil do evil. You're not gonna convince them. And Jesus also said, do not throw your pearls before swine. It is a sin to waste your time with pigs. And as Mark Twain said, do not roll in the mud with the pigs, because you're never gonna win. The pig will always beat you because you have deigned yourself down to his level. You have condescended yourself down to his level. Do not waste your time, my friends. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of calories. It's a waste of brain power. It's a waste of your dignity, because you'll be sitting there for hours arguing with some schmuck, and he's just going to go, well, I don't really see it that way. I fail to see your point. And shall we not contextualize and recontextualize everything to death, Theodore? You're going to be wasting your time. It's a waste of time to try to convince people who blatantly see the truth. This is like when they were trying Jesus, and Jesus was silent, because he knew it was a waste of time to deal with these people. And if you try to deal with them, you're giving them what they want, because they want to take your time. They want to drain you of your energy. They want to wound your morale and wound your heart. They want you to feel the exhaustion of dealing with the pig in the mud. It's a waste of time. What's the point? You've already lost if you have to deal with them. It's like that wonderful story in the New Testament, that beautiful parable in the New Testament, where it speaks of the rich man and Lazarus. And it says that there was this man named Lazarus who was outside the home of a rich man, and the rich man feasted and ate these succulent foods, and he ate all this fancy food. And the man outside, Lazarus, he just wanted to eat the table scraps of the man's table. He just wanted to eat the scraps of the man's table. And the man died. Lazarus dies. And the rich man dies. And the rich man wakes up and he's in hell. And he looks up and he sees Lazarus in paradise with Abraham. And he says, Father Abraham, could you just let me go back to earth so I can tell my brothers and warn them about this place? Abraham says no. He says, Abraham, can you go out and tell my brothers, or let me go out and tell my brothers about this place? Abraham says, no, I'm not going to do that. You know why? Because even if a man came back from the dead and told them the truth, they will still reject the truth. And what did Jesus mean by that? What did he mean by that? What did he mean by that? Very simple. Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. The parable was based on reality. Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. And what happened after he raised Lazarus from the dead? The high priest wanted to kill Lazarus and Jesus. And so Jesus was saying, even if a man came back from the dead, they still wouldn't believe. Because that's exactly what happened. A man was brought back from the dead, and the high priest got together and said, let's put him back in the grave. So even if they saw something as explicitly miraculous as a man being brought back from the grave and revived from death and brought back to life and brought back to earth, they would still be evil. Bottom line. And yes, the rich man was the high priest Caiaphas. That's correct. It is a parable, but like I said, it's based on reality. And remember what he said. Can I just go back and speak to my 5 brothers? Well, Caiaphas had what? He had, I believe, 5 brothers-in-law, because he was married to the daughter of Hanan, or Annas as he's called. And he says, can I go to my father's house? Who's the father here? Oh, Hanan, the high priest. And can I tell my 5 brothers about this place? Oh, his 5 brothers-in-law. And Christ was basically saying, they're all damned. Caiaphas is damned. His family is damned. His father-in-law, they're all damned because they're evil. How can you conspire to kill a man after he's been revived from the dead and not be evil? You have to be extremely evil to be that way. It really is that simple, guys. Don't waste your time. Now, if somebody comes to you and they want to know the truth, then speak the truth. But if someone comes to you in bad faith and they just want to mess with you and say, well, can God really? Turn the other cheek and say, begone, Satan. Well, don't say begone, Satan. That may sound cringe. But if you can say that while sounding cool, then go for it. I remember I was dating this girl, and she had this cousin who was a complete wacko. This guy had a Hitler. He had a tattoo of Hitler, okay, on his body, yeah. And he hated Christianity. He hated all religion. And I remember he starts arguing with me in the car, and he says, you know, you Christians are this and that, and you guys did the Crusades, and you're evil. And this guy looked like this. Remember the movie American History X? He looked like the guy from American History X. I mean, the guy was sick. And he was telling me about how, like, you Christians are this, and you're evil, and you're this, and you're that. He said you guys did the Crusades. He was a neo-Nazi telling me about how evil the Crusades were. You can't make this shit up. And I said to him, well, the reason why we know about the Crusades is because Christians wrote about the Crusades, and we know about the violence done, or I guess you could say war crimes done by the Crusades, because the Christians wrote about them. I said, so it's because of the honesty of Christians that we actually know about how the Crusades killed people. And he didn't know how to respond to me, and guy went ballistic. He went utterly ballistic, and he's like, F you, F. And he mentioned the name of Christ. I don't want to say that, but he's like, F this, F all of you, F this, fuck you. And the girl that I was seeing, her mom was driving, and her mom stopped at a red light. As soon as she stops at a red light, this dude opens the door and just walks right out of the car. The girl that I was with, she's crying, and I'm laughing. And you know what I said as he was walking out of the car? I said, resist the devil, and he shall flee. Why? And the mom was like, oh, come back. Why waste the time? Guy's crazy. Yeah, the guy was crazy. He was evil. Have you heard or seen a pastor named Geno? Never. Nope. I don't sit there and waste my time looking at every creep scumbag pastor on YouTube. I don't sit there and waste my time with that stuff. Some pastor named Geno. I mean, you would never see me caught dead listening to some guy named Geno on YouTube. I don't care what well, this guy said something about the Trinity. Have you guys been listening to me this whole time? Have you guys been listening to me this whole time? This whole time I've been talking. I'm talking for an hour about why you shouldn't waste your time with people. Why would I waste my time listening to a heretic? I don't care. I read the Council of Nicaea. We got the memo. The memo was released over 1,000 years ago. Why should I waste my time about some guy who doesn't want to read the memo? It's already been handled. It's already been covered. I don't think it's a parable, but I also don't think it's a parable, and it's reality, okay? It's just not that complicated, guys. Jewish rabbinical establishment want rather worship themselves. Yeah, I agree. Should I even bother with fundy atheists? I don't think you should waste your time with people who come in bad faith. Now, if somebody comes to you and says, I want to know about what you believe in, yeah, talk to them by all means. I had a neighbor who's a Protestant, and he knocked on my door years ago, and he said, I want to hear about Catholicism, and I talked with him for about an hour on it. I mean, I have no issue talking to people who want to hear me, but with people who just want to argue about everything, and you can give them the most honest, God-honest, open evidence of what you're saying, and you could tell them like the sky is blue, and they're going to argue that it's green. I mean, forget it. Just forget it. Yeah, it's like some pastor, yeah, it's just how I feel, absolutely. It's just a waste of time. I've had people come and say, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about that guy? I'm not wasting my time watching people on YouTube going, well, how am I going to refute this guy? And I'm going to refute, well, so-and-so said this about the Trinity. The whole thing, the argument over the Trinity was settled, okay? It was settled in the 4th century in Egypt. That was it. We already got this done. It's done. It's over. It's done. It's been settled. Why am I going to waste my time? These people got the memo, or if they got the memo, they don't care about the memo. It's like, who cares? It's exhausting. I want to read about the revival of the Third Reich. I want to read about the revival of German power, how World War II is going to happen again. That's what I want to read about. That shit's fascinating. Like, you mean to tell me that the shit that we heard about in History Channel back in 2003 about Nazis and eugenics and all this stuff, you're telling me that stuff could actually come back? Yup. And no one believes that, by the way. Very few people believe that. They're all in this chat listening to this live stream. But most people think you're crazy if you tell them this stuff. Most people love Elon Musk. Oh yeah, liberals and conservatives. The conservatives love Elon Musk. They love him. They are being dragged into this deception. Dragged into this deception. And most people don't want to listen to the truth. But again, I give people reasons why I don't like Elon Musk. I'm not some crazy leftist who will say, well, I don't like Elon Musk because he's a 300 billionaire. That's low tier level retardation. I'm not going to bash a man because he's rich. He made that money. He made that money. I'm not here to take his money. I'm not talking about I'm not bashing people because they have money. I'm not bashing people because they get money. I'm bashing people because they're trying to take people's souls. And they're deceiving people, and they want to usher in a demonic, destructive, murderous ideology. That's what I'm worried about. And Elon Musk, with all of his power, I mean, the guy believes in some crazy-ass eugenics. And you have, this is what I understand about Christians. They'll sit there and say, well, Elon Musk is great. For decades, Christians have been talking about the mark of the beast, and they're going to put a computer chip in your hand. And you have this Elon Musk guy saying, I want to put computer chips in people's freaking heads to make them into cyborgs so that they can transcend the human condition and accelerate the process of human evolution. And all these Christians are like, this is great. This is great. This is why I say American Christians, a lot of these modern day Christians, they're just at a whole other level of retardation that most of us cannot fathom, and I can't fathom it myself. This guy wants to put computer chips in people's brains, and he's talking about making people into cyborgs. Some crazy ass shit that comes straight out of Hitler's wet dream. Okay, it's insane. Yeah, I never married her. Her family was nuts, obviously. Believe it or not, she had the audacity to tell me, after the guy left the car, she had the audacity to tell me, that's my most normal relative. I'm out.